If you're running your agency and you're worried about all you're hearing about AI leaving you behind, don't worry. It's not as complicated as it looks. We just need to be prepared for it, and this video will help you get there. So today we're going to be going over how to prepare for AI. I know this is like a hot topic, and what my take on this is that there needs to be some pre-work done before we even get to the point where AI can generate significant gains. Right now, AI can do very simple tasks. It can automate certain like basic things, but we can't get a lot of work done through it. So the gains aren't significant yet. We need to use AI in the right way, given its current limitations, and also think about ways of actually using it so that we can get those efficiencies out of it today, but also more so into the future and be prepared for that. This is part of a system of how to hold people accountable. And we're not going to worry about the bottom part of this at this time. But what you generally need is dashboards and training people on how to use those dashboards, objective metrics and KPIs on a per role and per team basis. And finally, we need to go through RACI and SOPs, which is really about driving the clarity that is needed for people to actually be able to do their jobs in a way where we're holding them accountable, right? Because if we don't have clarity for the individuals, they're going to basically say to us, it's like, well, I just don't know how to do this, or there isn't clarity on how to do this. And it makes it impossible to actually hold them accountable. So this is the tangible stuff. The interesting thing about RACI and SOPs is that this is actually exactly what you need in order to map out how you're going to use AI to do certain items from the work that people are doing day to day. So let's get into that. So here we have an example of a RACI matrix. Now, the example of this one is specifically for the general creative process. But like, look, you should have this for buying ads, creating a website, whatever else have you. What a RACI is, it's all about who is responsible, accountable, consulted, and informed during the process of delivering something, right? Accountable means that they have veto power. Responsible means that they're doing the majority of the work on that thing. Consulted means they have to give input and or read anything that they're CC'd on via email or project management system and render their opinion. And informed just means that they need to be CC'd and or tagged in the project management system so that they understand what's going on and they can keep things moving forward generally. Okay. So let me show you how this really fits with this preparation for AI thing. How AI workflows work is that we need to know when to incorporate the AI, when it needs to do a job, and when somebody else needs to do a job. As AI develops, it's going to develop at different speeds. So it'll be able to do certain things before others. Well, just like you have certain different roles in your agency, there's going to be different AIs that do different things, hence why we need to do the RACI. So for example, who's doing the quoting? Is this human or is this AI? And then how is quoting done? We would then need an SOP on how to quote. Okay. Scheduling and time allocation, right? This generally falls to like the account manager or maybe some sort of traffic manager if you have one. Does that fall to this individual or can this be done by AI? So on and so forth. Creative brief development, concept ideation, visual design, copywriting, all of these things. Like this is the process that is a generic creative process to deliver against a very specific set of deliverables. The question is, where do we incorporate AI? And we need this regardless if we're working on an AI or if we need to give clarity to a human being on what they need to do. For example, if we write a full SOP on just quoting, we can then train an AI on how to do a proper quote, right? But until that time, a human needs to do it. So the biggest problem that people are facing in today, which is around, again, April 2025, things may change very quickly, is that at the end of the day, AI is going to be able to do certain things faster and we want to basically replace ourselves. So for example, when we're talking about copywriting, maybe we can already get the AI to do copywriting. So instead of it going to, the creative director for consultation and the copywriters, the accountable party, etc., maybe this is actually done by AI and that's incorporated in the SOP. which means that there are clear deliverables given into the AI about what to do inside of the standard operating procedure to feed it the right information so that it gives us the right information back as the copywriting step. And maybe we still have a copywriter. It's just that their efforts are multiplied because they are doing the editing and the quality assurance of the work that the AI is doing rather than actually doing all of the work themselves. Okay. So this is why the RACI really, really matters. Because as you can see, if we create an AI for quoting, an AI for scheduling, for writing the creative brief or doing the copywriting, etc., we can replace things one at a time. And this gives us a good guideline of how to do that. And for example, if we create an AI writer, for example, here, we could say AI writer, right? Maybe here they're responsible, right? Because it is responsible for actually doing the bulk of the work, but the copywriter is still accountable, meaning that they have the veto power and it's their job to ensure the quality of that writing. We could do similar things here with, for example, the creative design, right? So visual design. Maybe this ends up on a new AI. We'll insert right here. So this is design AI, right? We can say, for example, the actual visual design development is the responsibility of the design AI, but the art director is still accountable because they need to quality assure the work. They need to ensure that it is strategically aligned to the brand tone and that the client will ultimately like it. But in this case, maybe the AI can do 80% of the work. Okay. Again, we need to incorporate the AI into the actual workflow and the RACI that is ultimately going to happen. Now, this can really help us understand where we can insert AI and why. And it's also a requirement for the people so that they know when to use the AI. But like, what about the documentation behind this? Well, that's a bit of a different topic. We now need to transition from RACI, which gives us the high level of every single item, because, for example, every single item in here could potentially have an SOP and or documentation how each one of these items gets done. That needs to belong somewhere. And we need to write it down in an SOP, but also gather examples and data of these steps. So let's first start with the actual SOP itself. So here we have an SOP, and more specifically, the most meta thing I've ever written, which is an SOP on how to actually write an SOP. But it has all the core elements that we want to see out of an SOP and all of the core elements that we will need to help the AI train itself on what it needs to do. It's the SOP and the RACI plus one other element that we're going to talk about after the SOP. So, what are the core elements of an SOP? Well, we need to start off with the goal because this is how the methodology of any SOP actually works. You need the goal, you need who it's for, you need a methodology if it's needed, step by step instructions, a checklist, a flow chart, hopefully a video that gives context. Okay. And when I mean video, I mean step by step, somebody executing the item that this is covering. So actually showing people like this is how you do this step by step by step, and with some, you know, verbal explanation of the context behind why the steps are the way they are and what are the considerations, right? And then finally, placing the SOP in a predetermined area, which is linked to the RACI. And also, hopefully, like if you have Notion or a project management system, the SOP should belong to any type of work that it corresponds to. What does this look in practice? Well, here's the goal. The SOP of this SOP is to create other effective SOPs. Who is this for? This is for anyone trying to create SOPs. Here's the flow chart. Here's the step by step. Now, I'm going to pause here for 1 second because this is actually one of the most important things when it comes to you wanting to automate this with AI. One of the main things that any AI engineer is going to ask you about is what is the workflow to get this work done? Because they require that static workflow because that's what the AI is going to work off of. If you don't have clear workflows, they cannot engineer the automation to actually do the work that you want it to do. So you need to have this for every single one of your SOPs. Now, this is how you can get ahead of it, right? So you determine goal, determine stakeholders, identify level, of methodology, gather steps, create checklists. Like this is how you create an SOP, right? Create flowcharts, create a video, place them in the right place. Like this is the flowchart of how the work gets done. And this is exactly what is going to be mapped out when you're automating this process, right? The other thing that is very important is having some sort of video or multiple videos that show how the work is done. In the case of an SOP, it can just be one. But if you're trying to automate this through AI in the future, you're going to need multiple videos to give it multiple angles of how the work can actually get done. Same thing with the step-by-step instructions. The AI that is being created and the automation that's being created is going to require the step-by-step functions of how to actually do the work. A best practice that you can add to SOPs is having links to examples of work, which are not stated here. But you could actually create links of like, this is what a good version of doing this looks like, the end outcome of what that output looks like, which is a very important thing that we basically need to transition to talking about now. So the last thing I want to talk about here is really thinking through how to train the AI. So like we have the RACI, we have the SOP, we get the benefit of our people working more effectively through this. And by the way, if you don't have this in the way that I've already explained it, this is going to get you absolutely fantastic financial and efficiency gains from your team, increase clarity, increase accountability, all that good stuff. So like this is the pre-work for AI, but it's also the right work to do to improve your agency as a whole. There will be tangible gains from this. But I'm going to draw out for you a couple of things here. What we need to think through is where to store all of our information pertaining to certain things. So, for example, what does good creative copy look like? We need a file or folder full of our creative artwork. So, here's all of our creative artwork. We also should have other examples of how we got there. So we need to get people into the habit of recording what they're doing in a group setting when we're having brainstorming meetings and or discussing certain topics. We need to record those internal meetings. Also, recording those same things with clients. So when we're showing clients that type of work and we're presenting to them that kind of work, like the back and forth that's going to happen there when we show that work to the client, right? Why? Because AI needs us to learn from as many different angles as possible. And how we need to train the AI on these specific tasks is to basically have a series of folders, right? For all of this work. So for example, like all the quoting information has to go into this quoting folder, right? What were the considerations? What were the inputs? What does the output look like? It needs many examples of the output. So we need to start having a data strategy of how we store our finished work products. For example, copywriting, right? Copywriting could go in its own folder. So all of those examples go there. All the design examples need to go into a specific place. What were the inputs? What were the considerations? What were the outputs? So on and so forth. So the first step that you need to really think about is number one, getting that RACI complete for every single step of every single service that you deliver. Step two is having SOPs by level. And then step three is having this data warehousing figured out. Like, where are you going to store each specific topic's examples and walkthroughs and data, so that way, when the day comes, you can plug AI into that folder and say, all you need to know about coding is here. All you need to know about writing is here. All you need to know about whatever the topic is in this folder. Go learn from it. Here's the inputs. Here's the considerations. Here's the output. And then once you do that, we have to go back to the RACI, amend it, slot in whether that's the creative AI, design AI, coding AI, whatever have you, and then change the RACI so that way people know when the AI is going to be doing the work. And remember, until the hallucination problem is fixed, we always require somebody to be accountable for the work that the AI does. So the AI can be responsible in the RACI matrix, meaning it does the bulk of the work, but a human needs to be accountable for the quality assurance of the work that the AI does. So look, if you want to continue the conversation of how to optimize your agency and how to prepare it to actually onboard AIs, look at the description below, get in contact with me. Otherwise, if you found this helpful, click subscribe for my future videos. We're launching one per week. See you on the next one.